Welcome, good evening, everyone, to the Two-Edged Sword. I'm your host, La'Tanya Moore-Newsome, and we have to the right, Ashley, and to our left, we have
Rico.
Right. We welcome y'all this evening. Tonight, we want to do a special edition, a little different than what we've been doing the past few months. Tonight's going to be addressed to domestic violence. Not only for everyone that has encountered domestic violence, unfortunately, in the U.S. and outside of other countries, but precisely because I want to honor my late father, that he had me, the eldest, and Deborah Benenfield, my younger sister. We just lost him last month to domestic violence, so I want to contribute this show, we all do, to my father, Robert Lee Buford, and want everyone to seriously take notes in this conversation. Won't be as giddy and as how we're usually doing our laughing and joking, because this is a serious topic that we've had discussions about this week. So I want to kind of go over briefly a couple statistics, and we're going to get into questions. And of course, as usual, all you guys' questions they're waiting in the back of the scenes to answer your questions or get your questions over to us. So with that being said, let's have a moment of silence for my father and everyone else that was been a victim and families that has been a victim of domestic violence. All right, thank you guys. So let's get into it. October was declared as a National Domestic Violence Awareness Month in 1989. It's been a time of acknowledgement for domestic violence survivors and a voice for its victims as well. Although there has been substantial progress in reducing domestic violence, an average of 20 people is physically abused by an intimate partner like every minute. This equates to more than 10 million abuse victims annually. 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men have been physically abused by an intimate partner. 1 in 5 women and 1 in 7 men have been severely physically abused by an intimate partner, leaving millions of Americans living daily in silence within their own homes. In addition, every year millions of children are abused and exposed to domestic violence incidents, which can have long-term negative effects in the household. So with us knowing these enormous numbers statistically, that's a lot. Millions of children, millions of men and women just in the U.S. alone. That's alarming. What prompted this was is a discussion we've had collectively this week, where I was online and seeing some things on reels and social media with domestic violence towards women. I have seen some towards men as well, but we tend to kind of put it under the rug, so to speak, when it comes to the men, because the men don't want to know. I want people to know that domestic violence is a thing for them. Unfortunately, like the situation I encountered, and I had a conversation about this a day before I left with my dad about why is he staying. And he's a man. He's gonna be a man, and it was like it's okay. I'm good and things like that. And then 13 days later, his life is gone. So I want to start. Let's just go and start with some questions, and I guess I can go first. Okay. And these are some touchy questions, but we're gonna get through it. So I want to ask, do you believe a man can be pushed into committing domestic violence? This was a regular question from really an outside person. Okay. Yeah, so with you being a man and it's being a question pertaining to men, let us know what your thoughts on that.
I think that everybody has a limit to what they feel like they could take or what they can't take, or their pushing point when they feel like that they're either being threatened or being held in a confined space where they can't leave and get air or leave and get their thoughts together. So I think that is definitely could be. I don't want to say push to domestic violence, but I want to say that a person can be triggered to act outside of the normal. Yeah.
All right, Ashley, your thoughts. Do you believe a man can be pushed to commit domestic violence?
Yes.
Okay.
Some women do push men to put their hands on them because for them, they feel like they already gonna do it anyways. So some of them egg it on as far as getting it to come out of them, and some of them, they already have it in them, so they're just gonna go with the flow. They're not gonna try to stop and think like she's pushing me to actually put my hands on her. So yes, I do agree with that.
It's a definitely interesting perspectives from a male and a female, because then we have a male perspective, female perspective is basically kind of for the first time with this situation saying the same thing, and I'm going to agree as well. My thoughts of why a woman or most women push the men to do that, because I thought about this. It's like, why would somebody physically want another person physically abusing them, mentally abusing them, verbally abusing them? If we're being honest with ourselves and what we've seen going towards in the 20th century, a lot of women, that's the only form of attention that they have even gotten or that they've seen,
Right.
or that they feel like, she may not really want to be bust upside her head, but she's getting some type of interaction with the man. And it sounds, absurd a little bit at a time to some, women and men that haven't encountered it, but there's literally people that this is their form of communication. Unfortunately for them, it's a toxic form of communication, but it is a form of communication. So I definitely agree. Yes, women definitely can push a man to commit domestic violence. Let's take a question from you, Ashley, and we'll just wing it.
It says after a domestic violence relationship situation in a relationship, do you believe that the relationship can be restored?
I think that anything can be restored. If it still has life and breathing, it still can be restored. I just think that it wouldn't take a normal way of restoring as far as you and I talk about it and work it out. I think that is definitely going to take professional help, therapy, counseling, and probably like anger management. But so I think that it can definitely be restored. It's just about the work that both parties are willing to put into it.
Yeah.
So,
That would be pretty much what I would say.
yeah.
Because this, you can't really be biased. You can't really say that they wouldn't do it because everybody changes their mind. So if you want to restore the relationship and y'all know that y'all can come together as one and actually get your mental together and work on it, then yes. But if you're not going to come together and actually fix the problem and say, okay, I want to do better, I want to be better, I don't want to put my hands on the person I love. If you can't really get that through your head, then you're going to always put your hands on somebody. If you're not going to physically get down within yourself to see what's wrong with you, it may be learned behavior or whatever, picked up behavior, whatever the case may be. If you're not willing to do it or both willing to do it, you're not going to be able to restore it.
I definitely agree with that. It's just anything, like you said, both of you guys have said, it's going to be up to both of those individuals. If he or she, whichever is the abused victim, whichever one is the abuser, they come together collectively with all these things we talked about, getting the help, the mental help, the counseling, and really just get to the root cause of it. Because I feel like if they don't address, or he or she doesn't address what the root cause is for these actions, it's going to resurface whether they restore the relationship or not. A lot of times, if we really, when you in a domestic violence situation, y'all restoring it every time you make up and fight, make up and fight, make up and fight. It's being restored to a certain extent, at least to, the level where you're not physically putting hands on one another or talking, crazy to one another at that point. But then there are other steps that need to be taken. Like, we need to get help. We need to get counseling. We need to manage this situation. What is it about this situation that caused you to be violent and things like that? So the things do have to be addressed. But like I said, everything's restorable. We restore relationships based on infidelity. So, and that's hurtful. That's emotional abuse. Things like that's mental abuse when you can't, she not sleeping, he not sleeping. You're wondering where your spouse is or your partner when you're at work. Like, these are all forms of abuse. So they do get restored, and I definitely agree with that.
Okay. All right. My question is, that's a good question. How would you help a friend that's abused if they don't admit to it, but you know they are? So how would you help a friend that's being abused and it's noticeable that they're being abused, but when you try to help them, they don't admit that they're being abused? How would you help a friend like that?
Whether they admit it or not, sometimes it really has to be off if they want the help or not. If they don't want to receive the help, then it's going to be hard to give them that help, because unless you out here calling the police and CPS and getting them taken out of that situation like right then and there really is no help. And then like the states, they be so funny. Even if you've been in a relationship 4-5 years, that's a common law marriage. They ain't gonna help you. If you married, you gotta go through the court. So you basically still don't get help. Rather, if you gotta be on your deathbed before you get help. But when it comes to a friend, you either gonna have to pretty much drag that person with you and say, come on, you ain't dealing with this no more, or literally call the police or whatever the case may be. But in all reality, it really depends on the person who's getting abused. Some people like being abused because they feel like that's a part of love for them. They feel like that's what love is. Even if they don't feel like that's what love is, they probably sticking it out for the kids, they self, because they've been together so long. So it's a million things that's running through your head while you trying to plan an escape as well. So it's really all up to the person who's getting it done to them. Many of people can run and say, come on, let's go, I'm rescuing you, we going here, we taking the kids there, but you have to sit down and be willing to receive that help just as well as they giving it.
Okay.
KD said it's easy to get in but hard to get out of.
Yes.
Absolutely, and that's going to be one of the questions we have. Is going to be
We're gonna definitely address that.
Pertaining to that, and then kind of as y'all know, we're pretty transparent when we up here, so we'll touch a little bit on our thoughts from personal perspectives as well. So for that question lets me know that either you definitely have had a personal connection with, unfortunately, with some type of domestic violence to know that, because that is absolutely true, KD. The question was about too now. Thank you for that question about helping a friend that does not want to basically acknowledge that they're in a domestic violence situation. How would I help that person? You know the saying, it's like, you can lead a horse to water, but you can't make it drink it. I mean, like, it sounds cliche, but ever so true. Because the one thing is, like any other situation, that person has to, within themselves, understand and see and know that they need this help. No matter how many black eyes I've encountered that. No matter how many black eyes they got, no matter how many times something had happened, etc. It was like they wasn't gonna get it until that last time where they was like, you know what, enough is enough. Now, what I suggest that you do if anyone encounters this is be as supportive as you can. If there's children in the home, try to get the children more, and especially if it's a time that he or she is coming in and they irate or they in a situation, at least get the children out and invite. Maybe you might want to sit over. You just gotta be easy when you're dealing with things like this, because remember, when somebody's being abused, there's a part of them that is attached to that person enough for them to hurt them. They love them more than they love themselves at that point, because they're allowing somebody else to put them in a situation like that. So we just simply go back to Ike and Tina.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't you could say whatever you wanted until she was ready to go. Well, that last beating, enough is enough. You know what I mean? But just be supportive. You know.
Dallas Cross said, a close friend of mine took her life with her kids in the back seat. Staying silent definitely is not the way to go. If I knew then what I knew now, just hire an investigator to get evidence on her abuse, even though it's invading the privacy of the individual. If you truly care about the safety of that person, you get the evidence you need to put this sorry individual away. Don't wait too late till someone is taken or that person takes their own life.
Absolutely. And that kind of goes on to what my answer would be, is that one, I will let my friend know that it's obvious that they're going through something and there is signs of abuse. No matter how much they deny it, I still will let them know, hey, I'm not trying to judge you, but it's evident, everybody see it. And then do I expect for them to come around and say, yo, I want help right now? No, probably not. But the next step that I would probably take is something like they said. I would try to have put together like an intervention, with the people that really love that individual, even if it's just amongst us friends, let that individual know how much we love them, how much we're there for them, how special they are, how they're loved, and see if that let them know that it's just bigger than just them in the situation where actually trigger something and change it. So that's exactly what I would do. I would try to have a little intervention and let them know how special they are.
That's definitely a good point. That's good. At least they have that support. That's the biggest thing. Like they're not gonna be openly receptive right then and there. And they may come a time or two. There's a situation like I've had where I've literally picked up the friends, the kids, and they came over, and then about maybe the next day or two, they right back. But as long as you know, when you need me, I'm gonna be there. And she eventually left, but when you need me, I'm gonna be there. That's what they need to know the most, because right now they in a bad head space. They're not in a space that the normal us would be in. It's not going through that. The person that they love tremendously is causing enormous pain and suffering to them. And the most time you gotta sleep next to this person because this is the intimate partner. And then we don't know what all the situations are. A lot of times when it's women, they're not financially stable enough to be where they can just up and leave. And then there's not enough shelters that are available, like Ashley was saying earlier, even for the homeless, unknown abused men and women. So there's different moving parts that will have somebody in a situation where it's like, I want to go, but it's just not, the right time.
Right.
So yeah, that's definitely good. We got another one. Y'all want to go? Okay, let me sort this.
Okay.
If a woman hits a man, does he ever have the right to defend himself and hit her back?
Good question. You start with me because I'm a man.
I can start with Ashley. We can start with Ashley.
I would answer it. I would definitely answer that first. Coming from a man, I would say the right to hit her back. That's kind of a tricky question. I could say, should there be any hitting at all? No. I think that if she hits him, his first line of defense is to leave. You know what I mean? You should always leave. But this is when it gets tricky, is that she can hit him, he would try to leave, and she would stop him from leaving and continue to hit him. Now, what do you put that guy at?
Right.
Because now you putting that guy in a situation of, hey, look, one, I'm trying to leave to prevent this. 2, you really trying to be handled right now.
Right.
3, I'm trying to leave, but you won't let me. 4, you got one more damn time to touch me. 5, I'm trying to leave, but you won't let me. 6, you hit me, what the pop hit you back. And now guess what? The victim always going to look like the woman. Because of the fact that he's a strong man. He could have moved her out the way and left. He's a strong, so it always going to come back to that situation where majority of the time is going to be his fault.
You think so?
Until it's some type of physical harm done to him.
I mean, the statistics said 1 in 5 women and
Yeah.
1 in 7 men.
That's a
So
lot.
some things
Yeah.
are getting reported.
Right.
Yeah, and you know, and 1 in 3 women and 1 in 4 men are physically abused. So I mean, I think it's really neck and neck. We're a little, you know, I don't know. Okay.
KD also said a lot of times women don't admit it because of their embarrassment and shame that they have for even allowing the abuse to happen or continue to happen.
Mm-hmm.
Especially in the cases where they were warned not to get in a relationship from the beginning.
Mm.
That's pretty much that's to go even further than that. I think that's 100% true, because that's even the same way with being in a failed marriage. If somebody tell you that, hey, it ain't gonna work, you know, you don't want to admit to that person, hey, we having problems,
Right,
because they already said it wasn't gonna work. So now you in a relationship where people say that it's not gonna work. Your last thing is gonna be is to put your face out front and be like, yeah, you're right, it didn't work. Especially with abuse, that's kind of like, that's even like the tip of the iceberg. Like, it didn't work, and this person is like kicking your ass at the same time. That's
a double
even
whammy,
double.
yeah.
Yeah, that's a double whammy. You know.
Yeah. What you said? You want to read it again?
Yeah.
Okay.
A lot of times women don't admit it because of their embarrassment and shame that they are allowing the abuse to happen or continue to happen. Especially in the cases where they were warned not to get in a relationship from the beginning.
Yeah, just in general, just being a woman and not wanting to put it out there is a lot of the reasons why women don't speak up about it, because they already in their mind think that they the one that caused the person to start lashing out, that everything's their fault. And a lot of times it don't be nobody's fault, but it's just mentally you can't handle it, you don't understand it. Rather if anybody or you thought that that person was supposed to be together or not, nobody is supposed to put their hands on nobody. Just like we tell our kids and our little brothers and sisters, keep your hands to yourself. We don't do that. Same as well as when you become an adult. But when somebody is physically putting their hands on you and you trying to like literally think of what could make this person break down to harm you, and they say they love you, they care about you, they want to be with you. So a lot of it got to do with pride as well. We don't want to say nothing because we want to keep the kids with their daddy. We want the whole family like we thought we was going to have. So, and you think you can work it out sometimes. And sometimes he might just push you. One day he might slap you. The other, it's different. So different days bring on different feelings and different meanings on which way you're going to step sometimes.
Okay.
So you just really got to, like I said, just it got your mental, like you really got to think about it. Like, get with it or get gone. Like, once you realize it's time to get up and get out of there, go.
Go.
Dallas Cross also said, let's not forget, not all abuse is visible.
No.
That is actually true. One of us, I believe, is Ashley, has that question that I picked. So definitely we know not all abuse is physical. So we're definitely gonna touch on that, Dallas. And back to the KD's.
I got some good questions.
Yeah, we got some with KD's responses. And and thank the men. Like that's a thing, like, man, y'all men are awesome for even tuning in, because I know this is one of those situations like children, child support, and blood tests and all that, where the men feel like they have no voice. Like, when you're dealing with us, you have a voice. All of us have a voice, and I guess by now, Jericho could probably say, I feel like it's equal. So it's not like we jump on him or we double. Like, it's just really understanding one another. So we have these things going on in the households at the rate of 10 million a year. This is something that definitely needs to be addressed, as well as relationships on the positive end, and and dating and infidelities and children and co-parenting and things like that. This is a serious matter and a serious incidents that happen in these households, and we all can attest up here in one way or another the effects of that. But I think until women stay or don't, are they quiet about it? Because one thing we don't like to, let's paint this picture. So we together and I'm like, oh my gosh, like I have this amazing man, like he's just so awesome, and with this and with that, this is who I'm marrying, this is who I done had children with, we in this covenant, and then we're in the home, and turn around and one day I gotta put extra makeup on where You know, maybe I came in late with the homegirls or something, and you just lost your job. It's a lot of different things, a lot of different reasons these things happen. Sometimes they do just happen at once, and sometimes they happen more frequently. But I would be less reluctant to go to my daughters, my mother, my friends, and say, hey, they like, what happened? I'm gonna say, grandbabies was playing and one of them threw the ball too hard. I'm gonna make up something too, because now I gotta now process what I've pictured in my head. Is like Esther, this life we've made, and now I have to let everybody know my Prince Charming is far from Prince Charming.
Right.
And what does that say about how he sees me to be sending me through this? So then what does that say to me mentally about where I stand in this man's space that I knew or thought loved me, and we didn't build this covenant? So there's a lot of things that take place, and depending on where everybody's mental capacity is, because that's another thing we got to think. This things ain't just physical, it's mental. Like what mentally would make somebody take these steps to hurt another person? It's just like a murderer or somebody that unfortunately commits suicide and things like that. Do you know what type of headspace you have to be in to do these things? No, so
Right.
interesting. It's a lot. Okay.
My question?
Yeah, we can do it.
All right. Next questions are, what are some signs of an abusive person before the abuse happens? So, what are some signs of an abusive person before the abuse happens?
I'm sorry, I keep choking.
So,
I did. Say it again, I'm sorry.
what's the signs of an abusive person before the abuse happens?
Sometimes there is no signs. Like from experience, it just happened. Like, so I can't really say what the signs is. Like, they just lash out. One day it just be okay, and the next day it just like, all right, I want to put my hands on you. I want to do this. I want to do that. So you can't really always say you can see the signs before it happens.
That's good. Somebody be there. I would say I look for, before I even think about a red flag, you have caution flags.
Right.
Just like when you driving down the street, there's red, yellow, there's green. There's stop, slow down, go, vice versa. So there's been time, there's little signs. Some little sign is just like being in your space so much to the fact where it becomes obsessive. You know, like, I get it. Like, everybody want to feel loved, and you want that emotional attachment, emotional connection, etc. But when somebody is overly obsessive, like, why did it take you an extra, well, their timing, why did it take you an extra 15 minutes to come back home from work when you're normally home at 4, it's 4:24, and so what did you stop and do for 24 minutes? Did you, those little signs, because they get triggers. That's what I call triggers. You'll see triggers. Do you acknowledge those triggers? Most of the time we don't, because we just kind of we play with our own minds a lot of times and be like, oh, he just loved me, or she just, she just this or that. And there's definitely borderline. So I would say for a lot of the time for me, there's some type of red flags. Whether they come from the friends that tell you something, the family members, or just having conversations about, previous relationships. That's why the question is, hey, what happened in your last relationship? Type thing. So I would say, Ashley would say, no, there's not always red flags. And I say, if you look deep enough, I would say I would find some red flags.
KD in Dallas, KD said, extreme jealousy, anger issues, no mental instability. In Dallas Cross said, I can say the number one cause of abuse in your childhood, meaning what is done to you, quite frankly, may be done to others, or insecurity either in themselves or their partner.
I agree. I agree with that. I'm gonna take even a step a little bit further than that. This going to be how I think that both women and men can kind of see the potential of abuse before it gets started. one, I think that abuse is a red flag to me when a guy says, "Let me exclude you from the things that you know and the people that support you." So let's say, for example, it's gonna look like love and chivalry. Let's say like, hey, your family is in Atlanta, and that's where you're residing. Not just an example. And then he said, "Hey, let's move to Columbus. Let's move to Columbus. You don't have to work. It sounds good, but what's happening now is you're seeing a sense of control that's about to take place in most situations like that. It looks like chivalry, it looks like love, but it comes a whole different way sometimes. Okay, so I think that that's one of the kindness red flags to me when women say that. I would say that another red flag would be kind of like one of the guys said, is that the possessiveness, the control, just the temperament of the person. All right. So now let's go to the red flags for a woman may be abusive. Right. One is a woman that admits that I pop off. Oh, I pop off in a minute. That's a sign it's going to be some type of verbal abuse because it's going to lead to that disrespect to make a guy feel like either, hey, I got to put my hands on her because she's out of line, or hey, I got to tuck my tail and take this and not be happy. You know what I mean? So I think that both genders have signs, and if it's a woman that always talking about who that bitch, who is that, what you doing, where you at, why you answer my phone call, that's typically a sign of a woman that would probably take you there. You know what I mean? And again, it from a distance, it looks like, oh, you know, she cares a lot about me. She got to hear from me all day. I like that. I love that. I got her will. It's probably stemming from some type of stuff that she's used to encountering to prove that somebody actually cares about her. Like you said earlier, sometimes people just feel like if that guy put his hands on me, talk to me this way, that means he cares. So I think from both points, you have to kind of gauge those situations when that come up.
That's a good.
Shauna Malika said, when they feel you have been gone for too long or trying to keep you away from other people, once a person starts throwing things, I feel those are signs to me.
Of course.
Yeah, like being aggressive, tearing things up in the home. You know, just being real irate with the simplest things. I feel like those definitely Shauna are also red flags, and like you said earlier, and that's like seclusion. And then another thing with the seclusion, the second part of that is basically not only removing you from your support system, but then turning you against your support system.
Exactly.
So they'll turn you against your support system to a point where then it's like those people that would have been there for you or can be there for you now are like shunning because now you've turned into a completely different person based on the characteristics of now this obsessive, controlling other male and or female. And the craziest thing is a lot of times it's you know they portray it to be like love, like honest to God love. And most of the time the abusers say that as well. It's love, you know, it's just love, and it's really not. Yeah, those are flags. What do you have, Ashley? Because I think we got some. I got a good one. Okay. The last one.
It's would you say verbal emotional abuse is just as dangerous as physical abuse, and why or why not?
The camera.
Yes. So I'm starting off again. Okay, so I would say yes, because not all abuse is going to be physical, especially from a man being abused standpoint. A man being abused typically a lot of times is not going to be physical. It's going to be a lot of mental and emotional, you know, things that's going to be abusive to make that man feel like that he's less than a man, and that's kind of like playing on his manhood. So yeah, I would think that the physical and the verbal is just as bad as the physical.
What you said, Ashley? Your points on that?
I definitely agree, because them words definitely hurt just as much as the hitting and the punching and all of that. They can definitely say some crazy evil stuff that'll be stuck in your head. You'll be like, dang, I didn't even know that's how you felt.
Right.
But yeah, I would definitely say they go neck and neck.
Yeah. For me, it's definitely on the same playing field. The only difference is physically, you have the scars to show that you've been physically abused. Mentally, it's gonna reflect in the way you handle your day-to-day life. You know what I mean? Verbal comes off as more quiet, subtle, just fearful, fearful. But all three of these parts, some women and men deal with all three, more than one. You know what I mean?
Right,
They're on top of the physical, they're mental. And I've had friends that they're verbal. They had physical and they mental, but the verbal and mental abuse was horrific. Like it takes a long time to come back from that. Some of them don't come back from that type of abuse, and especially as women, and it'll cut men and women down. So we're talking about the men. Verbal abuse, a man is telling him, you're not gonna be nothing, you ain't nothing, you ain't doing this, and you not doing that, you ain't making enough money and all that. That chips away at your mental and the ego. Like it'll chop you down. Then that'll have you sitting there. Then you pulling some Coke 45 or something. Then you sitting there playing in your head all this stuff she done said, and she done got her check Friday. She put on the little black dress. She out the door. You about to wow out Wednesday, and then she's gonna be like, I don't know what happened. Well, the verbal abuse that turned into the mental abuse was so damaging that it caused you to physically abuse. So like these are chain reactions to things, and we have to be very mindful about the way we handle one another.
Right.
On the woman's side, she's doing what she need to do, and then here you go verbally. Did you look like you picked up 10 pounds? We don't play about that weight thing. Ain't no you look good, baby. This is the opposite. Did you pick up 10 pounds, girl? What you doing? And oh, you can't cook and clean, and the house ain't clean, and I'm working all day, and you don't do shit. You don't got nothing going on. Like these are things the same as the opposite.
Right.
And then she's sitting there, and she's like, that's her best. That could very well be her best, just like his best. It's his best. I feel like when we have these different moving parts in our lives where we now are on two incomes, most of the time you need to be in two incomes.
Right.
A real old ran house has two incomes.
Right.
Let's not talk about what the man want to do or he's saying he should do. Realistically, we need to make sure we're good together. That strain has been put on. And I also, in doing research, have found out since we've been in the pandemic, the rate for domestic violence has went up tremendously.
Yeah,
And we see that. Everybody you close in the house, job loss took on place, and then the other person got to figure it out, or maybe both parties lost their job. And when men, when y'all money ain't right, y'all turn into gorilla kings and y'all like King Kongs anyway. So definitely physical abuse, emotional abuse, or verbal abuse is no abuse of any kind. It should be tolerated.
So question on that. So we talked about that. So do you suggest that that people that are being physically abused, that they should get the same help as a person that's getting physically abused? A person that's being mentally abused, should they seek the same help as a person that's being physically abused?
I feel like they definitely both of those physical and mental abuse or verbal is gonna both require outside assistance and help. It's gonna require counseling.
Okay.
Because then we have these visible scars, but we also have the internal scars, which we also get with the mental and verbal abuse as well. Right. So yes, you're gonna have to sit back, get help, and figure out what is it about myself. Am I okay? And what is it about my past or my life where I'm okay with this happening to me in my house, in my home, with my partner? So I definitely agree, regardless of the abuse, that they definitely should be seeking professional help.
Okay. Makes sense.
And if not, because they're going to carry that into the next relationship. Pretty much we do it a lot all the time. Like, and that in turn, going through physical abuse will cause you to become an abuser just to keep from being abused, male and female. So because you did not seek outside professional help and this thing was not rectified between the both of y'all or even yourself, if you left the situation, it's gonna rear its head again.
Okay.
You're gonna attract that again. It's still in your energy.
Okay.
So yeah, I definitely agree with that. You gonna done with your questions? I got one.
3. Yes, sir.
And then we'll wing it real quick after we're done. So this is the question. We're done. Ashley, you on your third one, right? What?
You did 3.
You're done? You did your 3?
No,
Okay, yeah, the kid. Okay, go ahead.
I keep joking.
Okay, I can do it. Okay, so what are the effects of domestic violence in a household with children? This was an important question that I wanted us to talk about because yet while we're speaking on domestic violence, we have not addressed the effects on the rest of the household other than the abused victim and the abuser. 9 times out of 10, there are children that take this on. And then actually in the household, some of the times we become those adults that was those children.
Good
So
question.
yeah, what is
With me, I unfortunately grew up in a house where there was domestic violence, and it was like a repeated thing for my mom. You know, it's like each guy had some type of domestic violence issues, and as far as the way that I operated, I was like in the kindergarten, 1st grade. And as far as how it affected me as a child, as I can remember, is it made me feel like I was that I couldn't be a help. It distracted me from school because I felt like I don't know what's going on at home while I'm at school. I can't protect my mom. It made me feel like this made me feel like a little child that couldn't do anything, just had to sit back and just endure the emotional abuse, the physical abuse that my mom was going through, and I didn't have a way to get her out because I couldn't work and say, hey, you don't need dad's income because I got a job to get you out. You know, I couldn't say that. I couldn't physically, control the situation from grown men, grown man versus a kid. So it really left me stressed. It left me worried. I couldn't focus on school. I wanted to just get home to make sure mom was okay. So that was the effect of it.
And you did that like kindergarten till...
Kindergarten, 1st grade. I think all the way up until probably like about 9th grade, probably. It was just always this want to be the hero type person.
As you should, as the male should. That's a lot for any child or the children in the household to take on. And I'm pretty sure, back in our days, it was a lot of that going on for different reasons. The country was changing, things were changing, the workforce was changing, wasn't so great, for the average man or woman, and this is where women empowerment was starting to try to take a threshold and things like that. So, which there's by no means an excuse for anything. These are just, we're being transparent about things that take place because we don't know what's going through. Your brain does not function the same way as mine.
Right.
Mine don't function the same way as yours, et cetera, as well as Ashley. So we don't know what things affect us and trigger and prolong or things that we've dealt with as well. But definitely agree, being in households or even families in general where domestic violence has been a thing that's happened and, things like that, it does take a profound effect. Like I said, when you in it, if you've seen the abuse of an abuser, the abused victim, then you start to take on that aspect, like you want to be the protector for your mom. And for me, it was, okay, I know nobody's putting their hands on me, and I've already seen this. I've been around it. I know what it looks like. I know what it smells like. So you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to be aggressive. And I'm the chick. So if you look like you putting your hands on me, I'm gonna have to strike first, like a king cobra. That wasn't what I initially wanted to do, but that was my defense mechanism for not encountering that situation again. So, and not wanting to replay it and revisit it like I
Right,
did growing up, and not wanting the kids to see that and go through it. So it's a lot. It's a lot on a household. It's a lot on a family in general, male, female, etc. So at some point, an abuser is remorseful to a certain extent when they start getting it. So that's definitely strong points.
Like with me, I think what the most hurtful thing for me from the whole thing was, and I was just found out this, like, funny how to say, I just found out this probably like about a month or so ago, through the whole thing. Well, me and my mom had this conversation about domestic violence, about stuff that happens, and how me and my brother tried to jump in and help her. And she admitted, she said, sometime I started the shit. I'm like, fuck. Like, she said, sometime I started shit. So that's what I'm saying. Sometimes people can do stuff to get that reaction. And then when you have kids who trying to jump in and help. My brother got about 15 stitches trying to help my mom because he got cut by my stepdad. So these are the type of things you have to be aware of. Aware of when you start lipping and pushing a guy, pushing each other, and knowing that there's kids in the house, there's consequences that could take place with your kids being harmed or yourself being harmed.
Right. Definitely agree. And then like we said, not every situation or circumstance, a woman and or a man is pushing the limits. A lot of times you just partner up with someone that just really needs help. They have not addressed what is going on or have went on in their side, their family, their lives, their past. A lot of people that abuse have seen it growing up, and there's like no excuse. We make it very, very clear. There's absolutely no excuse for one or another. Me to put my hands on you, you to put your hands on me, etc. So it's not gonna be one-sided. This situation is not a one-sided situation. The last question we have is, why do they stay? The million-dollar question. The masses that have not been through domestic violence or emotional, physical abuse would ask. Those that's never encountered don't understand that. Why'd you stand? Why did you stay?
Just real quick. I think that people stay for different reasons. It's the fear of being hurt more, somebody coming and finding you and actually hurting you more, the fear of losing their financial support, or just a mental side of that person has on you mentally. You know, who take control of you mentally. So.
Yeah, that's definitely a good one. And listen, this has been a very, very emotional. Like I said, I think we did good. It's definitely been emotional conversation, but again, a much needed conversation for the men and women. So what we wanted to do with having this session is to make it be known and very clear that it's not just women that are domestically violated, it's also men as well. So there's men that have encountered this and that go through it actually on a daily basis as well. We don't want to just make it anything seem like this is solely a man's field where all men are beating on women and our women are just all innocent, or all women are getting beat on and the men are just solely innocent. No, we all have to take accountability and responsibility for our actions and who we are as individuals. If you know that you need help, if you are an abuser, by no means are we placing judgment, but what we are saying that there are avenues to get help, and that it's going to make life for you easier and better if you do just take that step and get help. With getting that help, you're in turn going to be a greater individual for yourself, a greater person for society, and for another mate. And then you can change the dynamics of your life alone. Are you an abuser or are you not? Even being abused, either way, there are helplines available, and I want to give you the National Domestic Violence Hotline. It's actually stationed in P.O. Box 90249, Austin, Texas, with the code 78709. You can call in or text 1-800-799-7233. Again, that number is 1-800-799-7233. That's the National Domestic Abuse Violence Hotline. And from the two-edged sword to every one of you, we want to say thank you for your time, and we want to definitely let you know that you guys, regardless what your situations are, if you're going through the situation, you are definitely in our prayers. Keep us in y'all's as well, and we will definitely get back with you guys next week. Thank y'all and have a good night.